Okay, now we're starting. Excuse me. And of course, now I lost my voice. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our actually second session of the Coach Launchpad series. My name is Elena Sarango Muñiz. I'm a leadership coach and founder of Sarango Executive Coaching. And I'm here as an ICF Houston volunteer leading this initiative. You're joining, as mentioned, the second session of this series. We started last month as part of a six session series that we are launching through the Houston Chapter Small Groups initiative. So for an hour, we have a volunteer coach, and this month is Susan Hodge, who's here on screen, and she will be sharing her expertise, supporting those coaches who are starting, who are creating their own coaching business. So hopefully this series is helping everyone in their journey of initiating their coaching business. We will be recording, as I mentioned, each session, and we will make it available to all of the registrars to all the participants who registered for these sessions. So now it is my pleasure to hand it over to Susan, our facilitator today. Susan, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Elena. So yes, I'm Susan Hodge. I am a ICF PCC credentialed coach. I've been doing this for about 11 or plus years. My first career was as an executive in a large corporate. And in the last maybe 10 years or so of that career, I kind of became known as a leader to go to help develop other leaders and to mentor other people within our organization. And it really established my secondary reputation as that. And once I left the corporate world, I built on that. So now I coach high potential corporate women. Yes, some men too, but for the most part, my coaching is high potential corporate women. So as Elena said, this is part of our Coach Launchpad, where we are here to learn and explore and share with each other as coaches. And we want to support the entrepreneurial and emotional parts of starting your business or expanding your business, or maybe you're just here to learn from others. So here's the format of how we will do this today. I will start with some basic information, and it'll be interactive. So I'm going to ask you to give thumbs up or put things in the chat room. And then we will move into an open Q&A question. So let's just try that out. Give me a thumbs up if that seems to work for you. Can I see thumbs up? Oh. I can't see any. Does that mean that we're not on board, or I'm just not seeing?
You got thumbs up everywhere, Susan. You're good.
Okay. Oh, they're there. Okay, I just got to look in the right place. Gotcha. But first, before we get started, I'd like you to put in the chat box, is there anything in particular you want to make sure that we covered today related to the imposter syndrome? And just give me an idea if there's something that's been on your mind or you're expecting that we'll talk about, and that way we will hit as much of that as we can.
Nothing yet?
Nothing yet. Oh, please explain it. William, I will definitely do that. In fact, that'll be a good place to start. So I'll keep my eye on that. If you think of things as we go along, put them in the chat box. So what is the imposter syndrome? It actually started with research in 1978 with the work of two therapists, psychotherapists, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. And they were doing the work at the time on women, and they found that many women with a lot of achievements had high levels of self-doubt. And while all of this research was done on women, I would be more than willing to bet that there are a few men that have experienced some self-doubt in this way too. And it was a deep lack of confidence that couldn't be associated with any anxiety or other disorder, and a sense of inauthenticity. And the women in this study attributed their progressions and promotions to luck or timing or faulty decisions by the faulty judgment by the decision makers. And these would be intelligent people, but they were still reluctant to put forth their opinions and ideas. So simply put, the imposter syndrome is an unfounded fear of being found out, or a fear of them knowing I'm a fraud, that I'm not talented enough, that I'm not deserving. And I'll share a story from my personal experience that just shows how unfounded this fear can be. So when I was in the corporate world, there's a very, very senior woman who was a mentor and supporter for me. And she had actually started her career a couple of decades earlier as a non-degreed secretary back in the days when they had such things. She was working full-time. She was married, she had a child, and while doing that, she went back to school and got her undergraduate degree. And then she continued and got her law degree, all the while she was being recognized for her talents, for her ambitions, and being promoted along the way. So she was demonstrating herself. And she ultimately made it to one of the most senior executive positions in one of the largest companies in the world. But yet one day, it was a Friday afternoon, and she and I were just casually talking in her office. And I don't know what we were talking about, but she said, you know, Susan, every Monday morning, I walk into the office afraid that someone is going to find out that I don't deserve to be here. This is a woman who had formal accolades, validation, had proven herself again and again and again for over a couple of decades, and she was still doubting that she deserved to be there. I mean, I was just speechless. I hadn't heard of imposter syndrome at the time, but I didn't know what to say to that. Because the imposter syndrome is actually born out of fear. And fear is not a problem if it's a fear of an occasional failure and it motivates us to chug on through. But if we give fear such power that it stands in the way of our goals and our dreams and what we want to achieve, then it becomes a problem and we have to manage it. So I have a very personal story in this space as well. In my early days as a coach, I had doubts about my own competence. And these doubts all came from my inner critic. They weren't coming from any external sources, because the people I'd worked with were actually giving me quite positive feedback. But yet the first time I was asked to propose, make a proposal to work with a corporation with some of their women, I was negotiating against myself. I felt like, oh my gosh, well, these are typically the fees, but gosh, I haven't been doing this very long. Maybe I don't really deserve to charge this much. So I undercut myself. No one was pushing against me. Actually, I was recommended for the job. I had a strong supporter. I had the inside track, and they weren't even talking to anyone else. And I didn't get the business. And I am absolutely convinced that I showed my self-doubt when I set forth my relatively low fee structure. So since then, I've actually gotten pretty clear on who my market is, what they can afford to pay, what I'm willing to work for, and what value I bring to the table. So I'm curious if any of you have ever maybe given your coaching away for free or charged less because of your own self-doubt. And just give me the thumbs up if you have. And if you have, you will not be the first one. A few of you have. And for those of you that haven't, good. And let's not do it either. So I want to look at some things we can do to combat that imposter syndrome that maybe if we're new coaches, we're like, oh gosh, can I really do this? Oh, do they really think will I be good enough? Because I'd be willing to bet that every one of us has at some point experienced some degree of self-doubt. So the first thing we can do is stop the comparisons. Comparisons are dangerous. They're always subjective, they're often biased, and they're unhelpful. So if you're comparing yourself to an MCC out there or someone that's been doing this for a long time or in a different space, it's just not gonna serve you well. In fact, it's gonna make you more self-doubting. Because you know what? You don't need to be the best coach ever. You just need to give your best. And there's a difference between being the best and giving your best. So let's just open this up to some chat room stuff. What are some things that you do to make sure that you are giving the best to your clients? Like one of the things I do is I take time to get grounded and peaceful before I meet with a client. Anybody have any tips for the rest of us?
I usually, this is BB Sorrow's late. I usually meditate for a few minutes to get myself prepared. And actually, I'm also in a professional environment too. I work full time. Right now, I'm between jobs, but even before going into a meeting with colleagues, or if I'm leading a meeting, I ask everyone in the meeting to take a few minutes to just breathe and set themselves and get themselves grounded so that they can be present. And since we're in a virtual world, I also ask them to turn their cameras on and also turn off their phones and remove them from, from the meeting so that we can focus on the job at hand.
Yeah, I like that. You're taking your coaching skills into the meetings.
Yeah, it's important. And, and when I did this with the last company I was with, they really appreciated it. Unfortunately, they've had some downturn and they had to lay people off. I was one of them, and that was okay. I'm just kind of taking a break, which is really wonderful. Yeah. And diving back into coaching, and embracing it.
Oh, good. Enjoy it. There will come a time when you'll be looking back saying, oh, I wish I had that break time again. So
yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? What is it that you do to make sure you're giving your clients your best? All right. If you think of something later, just join in. So the first thing we want to do to stop the self-doubt is stop the comparisons. The second is focus on what you are uniquely bringing to your clients. And I don't mean just your training. We're all presumably trained as coaches. I want the things that are unique to you. So here's a little exercise for you. I want you to write down or think about 3 things that you bring to your coaching practice other than your training. So what is it that makes you unique? And one way I like to think about this is, what would be missing if you personally weren't there? So think of 3 things that you uniquely bring to your coaching practice. And you're welcome to keep them to yourself. If someone wants to share verbally or in the chat, you're welcome to do that also. So as you're thinking about it, for me, I had been a senior female corporate executive. I had lots of global multicultural leadership experience. So I could relate to what a lot of my clients were going through or trying to achieve. And in my corporate career, I, like pretty much everyone, had some personal struggles and career changes that gave me some particular insight that would relate to my market. I could, as a coach, you don't tell them what to do, but I could relate to them. And I just had a passion for leadership development, people and people development and diversity. So those things and some others pretty much well positioned me to coach high potential corporate women. So, okay, we've got someone that says international HR experience, working with multicultural leaders and have lived in different countries. Okay, so that definitely gives you a cultural perspective and a variety of experience to deal with people from lots of different backgrounds.
That's me. It doesn't say my name, but that's me, Susan.
Is that Elena? Is that you? Okay.
Yeah.
So look at your list. How do you feel about it? And does it feel like you're bringing something to the forefront that is unique about your coaching? Because the next thing I'd like you to do is I would like you to write down or fill in the following sentence, and I want you to keep it close to you. My clients benefit from me as a coach because I fill in the blank. And I would love to see some sentences. If you're willing to do that, please put
Can
your
you repeat the sentence, Susan?
sentences. My clients benefit from me as a coach because I fill in the blank. You what? Might be what you bring, might be because of what you've done, it might be because of what you are, who you are. Aerospace and security, SME. Oh, this is BB Kelly, Serato. These are your three things. Cybersecurity, SME, integrity for a pioneer spirit, and relational understanding and cybersecurity professional. Well, yeah, BB, that is definitely something not everyone brings to the table. I empower aerospace and cybersecurity professionals to focus on human spaceflight and cybersecure infrastructure. By upholding ethical compliance and enhancing organizational intelligence, we deliver unparalleled operational efficiency through targeted coaching consulting. Nice. David says, I challenge their perspective. Yeah. Being willing to make them uncomfortable. I know that's a hard one, but good for you, David. That's great. Anybody else? Oh, you can always join in later. Okay, so we said stop the comparisons, know your unique value. And the third thing you can do to do away with that self-doubt or the imposter syndrome is own your successes. I do a post-mortem after every coaching session with myself. And I think, okay, well, what could I have improved upon? What could I have done better? But the difference or the focus is on what I could have done, not who I am. So it's a difference between discernment and judgment. Discernment is focusing on the process or the decisions. Judgment, it would be like a judge of who I am. So discernment's about what I can manage and control. So if I don't have a good coaching session, it doesn't mean I'm not a good coach. It might just mean I needed to do something different. Maybe I needed to get more rest. Maybe I needed to use silence more effectively. Maybe I needed to do more reflective listening. Maybe I rushed them to conclusion. But there's a difference between not doing something as well and not being the best, not giving my best versus not being the best. I may not have the greatest coaching session sometimes, but I know I'm still a good coach. And then the other part about, owning the success is when things go well, give yourself some credit. Now, we don't go tell our clients, oh, well, the reason you got to this is because I did such and such in my coaching. No, that's not it. But it's fine for us to, in your postmortems, acknowledge what you did well and how it helped the client. And then own it. Own it for yourself. What was your role in their success? So we've got don't stop the comparisons, know your unique value, own your success. And the last one is be yourself, be genuine. Inevitably, when we try to be what others think we're supposed to be. And in coaching, I don't know, I in the early days, I would have this in the back of my mind, it's like, what are they expecting me to do? How are they expecting me to show up? Never works, because when we're trying to be what others expect us to be, that's when we actually do look like a fake. I've been forgiven many times for my shortcomings when I didn't try to hide them. And then there were a few times that, when you did try and hide them, it just doesn't work out. So whoever you are, whatever your style is, just be comfortable in that. Get yourself grounded, do your meditation, as the suggestion was, whatever it is you need to do to get yourself ready to just bring yourself, because you and what you uniquely bring is really what they've hired you to do. So those are the 4 things that I thought of that have worked for me, and I've seen impactful in terms of getting rid of this self-doubt as a coach. So no comparisons, know your unique value and remind yourself of it. Own your success and be yourself. So you are all well-trained, capable coaches. So we just need to go show everybody else. And at that, I'm going to stop now. Let me take a quick look at the chat room, and then we're going to go to Q&A. So Roshmi says, my clients benefit from me as a coach because I offer a trusted, judgment-free space that allows them to explore their inner self through mindfulness mastery. Very nice. Very nice. So let's just open this up to things that are on your mind, or perhaps, might be challenges you've had, or it might be things that you've done to overcome your own occasional self-doubt. And the group you're all welcome to contribute to the questions that we get. So this is also a lot about sharing experiences.
Oh, I was going to say that what's really interesting is before COVID, I was very active in coaching. I mean, I ran my own business for 11 years, and that was after leaving aerospace. And then COVID hit and literally wiped out my business. We weren't in a virtual environment yet. That transition hadn't occurred, so it didn't pivot. I literally lost all my customers in a space of 1 to 2 weeks. Talk about having your confidence just go whoop. And it was nobody's fault. It was just the situation. And 3 months later, I started working for aerospace again. And when I first went in, I definitely felt the imposter syndrome. Oh boy, did I ever feel it, because I'd been out of aerospace for 11 years and things have changed and progressed. I mean, there are different vehicles now and everything. And the lead engineer that was working there, I said, am I doing this right? And I'm okay. And he goes, oh, he said, that's imposter syndrome. Stop that. And he said, you're fine. You'll get this. You'll be okay. Just work ahead and take a breath. So here was a leader that had some natural coaching abilities and, didn't realize it. I really appreciated that. And it did take me some time to regain confidence, but I just kept moving forward. And as he suggested,
yeah.
And when he left the company, I felt, oh, there went my mentor.
Yeah.
And then I had to start mentoring other people. And that really gave me confidence, was falling back on my coaching skills. It really helped me because it helped the other employees come to me and say, well, how can I handle this? And how can I handle that? And I would ask them questions and they would find their own solutions because I would empower them to make that judgment call on their own. It was really an interesting transition that I felt happen, going from actually feeling imposter syndrome to gaining confidence over time.
Yeah.
Fascinating me.
That's an awesome story, because who doesn't occasionally need some validation?
Absolutely.
We can have that little sentence in front of us all we want, but every now and then we need like someone from the outside to come in and say, no, don't worry about it, you're fine.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I love the fact, and you know, you're so right. So many times we feel so much better about ourselves when we start giving back to others. So that's cool.
Yeah, that communication is vital, and it's just to open up and gain psychological safety within a team environment and within, you know, a work environment and with other coaches too. Because I would reach out to one coach that I work with, and we'd coach each other to get ourselves through that, you know, through the feeling of, are we doing this right? You know, or is this really the way to approach it? And, you know, because sometimes you have to do some self-coaching, but it helps to have an outside perspective.
Yeah, it does. I have a coach friend in another state. We actually met years ago in our coach training, and we do the same thing. We get together once a month and we share coaching challenges or yeah, it's like, what would you do? Or am I handling this right? Or so it's helpful.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think for me, this is William. I think for me, my syndrome comes from, you know, I did 30 years in the military where we just mentored, telling people what to do all the time. When people have a problem, you send them on your knee, you get them through it. You have kids, you do the same thing. You're always giving advice. Coaching is different process, different mindset. So I haven't had any paid clients yet because I am still working on the certification. I should be done this week though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just going through the practices of, I just feel so uncomfortable right now because I've did something else for so many years.
Yeah.
And so just not feeling comfortable in my own skin or having someone think from a coaching standpoint, you didn't do this correctly. So I'm constantly checking myself and trying to figure out how I'm going to get through the self-doubts. But I don't practice what I preach because they don't know what I'm supposed to do. I do.
Exactly. Exactly. You have superior knowledge. So.
And so I'm constantly checking myself because I want to be the best I can be at this. I don't want to be a failure.
And I'm sure, you know, there are probably a number of people on here that would like to give you some encouragement in this space. But I will tell you, on this whole thing about switching from advice giving to coaching, I went through that, and I still have to bite my tongue every now and then because you're like, oh, it's so obvious what you should do. No, it's not. Might be what I would have done, but it's not necessarily what they need to do. But when you make that transition from being in the role of the expert, the leader, right, whoever, and you're going to find this, William, people are going to want you to give them the answer, and that's when it's really hard because you just don't. Right. I mean, if they go on and they're, you know, we're working through it, and then at some point, wait, is that someone on our call?
I think it might be William's microphone.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was someone trying to chime in or if we were just getting background noise. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, well, but I would say just grant yourself some grace, William. You'll be fine. And you do have superior knowledge. Anybody else?
I wanted to add something for William. He mentioned that he didn't want to fail. Okay. I have failed many times. And when I fail, what I do is I ask myself what I can learn from that failure. And it helps you improve. So in my book, there's no such thing as failure. There's maybe falling down and getting back up and learning how to proceed after, you know, something hasn't gone quite right. And that's okay. So don't let that deter you.
Yeah, agree. You know, there's another little thing that I don't know if others have been in this position, probably, where you ask a question and then you're like, oh, that's really not the best way I could have asked that. And instead of just letting the client figure out what to do with it, I will actually say, you know what, that wasn't the best way to ask this question. Let me try something else. So acknowledging in the moment when you want to do something differently, clients, they're fine with it.
Susan, I would like to add, since, I've been a coach for a while, but I just started my business. And since probably several of the participants here are about to start their business or just started their business, one thing where imposter syndrome shows up for me, and I think a lot will relate to that, is with the actual business side of things. So not with my coaching capabilities, but with, for example, it literally just happened to me. I had a call with this amazing potential corporate client, and the call could have not gone worse for me. It went from, wow, excellent, this is going to definitely transpire into a business client, a corporate client, to at the end, I was like, what was I thinking? Oh my God, this was horrible. I handled this call so bad. And fortunately, I have a mentor that I touch base with, and he was available. And I'm like, look what happened in this call. I think I really ruined it. And he made me realize that what might have happened is me asking the right questions to where it showed up that this was not the right client for me, because the client was trying to take me to where I really don't feel comfortable coaching about. And they just wanted to, fill their agenda and fulfill their responsibility of HR, giving coaches to their executives. But it was in a way that was probably in contradiction with my philosophy and my mission as a coach. So that helped me, having this conversation with my mentor helped me to realize that, okay, you might feel that it's actually you who ruined the call with your potential client, but actually could have been that it was not the right client for me, and that relates a lot with the way we see situations and optimism and all that. So I wanted to share that with this audience, because I think all of us have gone through that or will go through that.
Yeah, and I like, Elena, you bring up a really good point. Not every client that you're talking to is going to be someone you want to coach. And when you're starting out, your tendency is to think, well, I need clients, so I got to coach someone. And to some degree, we, make accommodations when we're getting started. But like Elena said, if you figure out that this is not really meant for you, I can think of one very early on in my coaching that I didn't have a good feel about it. And I'm like, well, and it was a friend of mine who had sent this referral. So I was, trying to accommodate my friend's request, but it was a client whose father sent her to me. She didn't know what coaching was. She didn't want coaching. Her father was trying to figure out how to get her moving in a different direction. So he paid the bill. He sent her to me. After about 2 sessions, I could figure out she was not interested. So I told her, I gave her some homework, and I said, after you've done these things, come back and we'll do another meeting. And what I suspected happened did. I never saw her again. But the point is, not everyone's going to be for you, and that's okay. No. Thanks, Elaine.
I had a situation the other day where I was coaching. It was a practice coaching session. The young lady came to the session. I guess she thought that she was going to run the session. And so as I was coaching her and trying to get through the process, I had to stop and pause and say, ma'am, can I give you an observation? She said, yes. I said, you're trying to run this. We hadn't gotten to the process where you discover yourself yet. You haven't discovered issues, but you have gotten so far ahead of the game because you want to dictate the outcome. And we're just in the middle of the process. We're trying to figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
She got so upset she hung up on me.
Well, that's that challenging her. But my opinion is that's you have to regain control. You have to gain that. When I was in my coach training years ago, in one of those, practice sessions you do where you're being monitored and evaluated, I got this guy that I was someone else who was in coach training. We were doing it with each other, but I can't even describe to you what it was, but I couldn't get them to go anyplace. And the coach mentor told me that I was chasing him around the room. And I'll never forget that phrase. But the way to get out of it is pretty much what you did, is you call halt and you say, wait a second, may I offer an observation of what's going on here? Or something like that.
Yeah, I have a little, oh, wait a minute. Rajami wants to spike. Go ahead.
Hi, Susan. Thank you for allowing us to sort of chime in the chat. But one thing that's helped me, I think, with this whole issue of self-doubt, and it's ironic because I faced this early on. I started coaching a few years ago with taking on clients and going through the discovery sessions and whether to take those sessions, whether to go through with the clients. And now I'm coaching a lot of people that want to be coaches. So I can all that relate to those initial, growing pains. But I asked this question of myself when I was going through it, and I asked this to my clients now, and it's been very helpful, which is, what's the worst that could happen? Just doing kind of a best case, worst case scenario, and even playing out the worst case scenario, which we often think is just so terrible. But realizing as we say it out loud, it's really not that bad. And if that comes to fruition, what is still the gift and opportunity there? What is still the learning? What is still the nugget of wisdom and experience that we can take away? And that oftentimes diffuses some of that fear, that fear-driven self-doubt that we face not only in the beginning of our careers, but as we continue to face as we, bring proposals and whatever else to our potential clients. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And you said something there at the end that I think is worth noting too. It's not just at the beginning of our career, it's throughout. It's not like one day it all clicks and we get it perfect from there on. It's always, and I love that. Thank you. What else we got? Any other questions? Experiences you'd like to share, things you're wondering about, you'd like to hear from the group?
I'd like to zero in on something that William said earlier. He used the phrase paying clients. I came from a corporate environment. They all came to me. That was part of my job. And now I'm transitioning to paying clients. Talk more about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I'll say I'm not a marketing professional and it's not a marketing thing, but all of my clients and the way I built my business was really getting my own paying clients. And I will tell you, at one point, I invested in some marketing guidance from Mary Kravitz. It's not, I guess you could call it a plug for her, but she was really helpful to me. But, and there was also a book I used called, it's an old, I don't know how old, Get Clients Now, which actually helped me think about what venues I wanted to use and how to get clients. And I do, well, it's been a little quiet, but I used to do a lot of public speaking and would turn those public speaking things into offers. Personal contacts and just general visibility where I'm telling people about what I'm doing, whether it's the organizations I'm in or the newsletters I write or things like that. But So I'm going to let anybody else comment on this, because that's always a question. How do you get paying clients? But those are two things I did. Is I took some training early on about how to do marketing, and I used this little book that just helped formulate my thinking on where to go. So anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll chime in. Right now, I'm actually enrolled in a course for coaches. It's a cohort for developing, a coaching business. And I have learned a lot so far. I mean, we still have another 6 months to go before we're done, but it's basically concentrated marketing tools specifically for coaches that are starting their business. And they actually did include something you just mentioned recently about what makes you unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I added in the chat was actually a unique proposition that provides someone with at least the interest of saying, okay, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is what I can offer. And also we're going to be going into email scripts, developing funnels, adding a magnet, like saying, if you come and coach with me or you come and meet with me, I can offer you this sheet, of, for me, it'd be aerospace and cybersecurity tips and tools, things of that, or questions they can ask themselves. But you provide something that you uniquely offer in that statement. And for the call to action, you say, well, come and talk to me and I'll offer you this free information. And people generally respond to that because, one, it's free. And two, it's something they're curious about. They want to know what's in that document that you have to give them. It's a magnet that attracts them. So if you're not in any kind of marketing training, maybe try to get some of that to help you get clients. That's the best advice that I can give, or best observation I can give, because it's doing me a lot of good.
Yeah. And this profession is not where if you build it, they will come.
No.
No, you have to know how to be a coach, you get training coach, and specifically spend time on marketing your business.
Yeah, and marketing can be anything from holding a webinar to provide information on the unique proposition that you offer, what makes you unique, or it can be a workshop, that's live where you're actually interacting with people, person to person. People like that. They miss it. It can be any number of ways that you can do it. It just depends on, you have to find what marketing best works for what you do.
Yes. And my husband has a friend, in the early days, he would say, Susan, it'll be like a grass fire. Once it gets going, it'll grow. And that's, I don't do as much public speaking. I like to, but during COVID, a lot of that went away, and now it's just slowly coming back. But the personal references, they'll trickle on. I always ask, one of the things I do is I stay in touch with past clients, not every month or something, but every now and then I'll check on them. And at the end of every coaching session, I will always ask them, I ask them for two things. I ask of you. One is to stay in touch, let me know how you're doing. And if they don't, I do. And the other is, if you know someone that you think needs coaching, would be interested in coaching, and I could help, I'd appreciate if you sending them to me.
Yeah, the other thing that a colleague of mine made a suggestion about, we're partnering. We worked together in the past in corporate, and we're both safety engineers and aerospace engineers. Anyway, he started a consulting firm, and what he wants to do is partner with me, because he wants to offer coaching to the consultants that work in his company. And he doesn't want to make it a requirement. He wants to make it an option. He did want to make it a requirement. I told him, you really think that's a good idea? And he said, maybe I should make it optional. And I said, yeah, because you don't want to force anybody to do something that they don't want to do, and they may not be coachable. You don't know, or they may not feel comfortable with that process. So, So I think that's kind of interesting if you can find somebody to partner with where, where you can offer coaching to their consultants or their these small companies, they're little nuggets. But it depends on whether that's your area of expertise. Are you offering leadership? Are you offering a specific, niche that you're providing your background, expert knowledge? Because in aerospace and cybersecurity, I don't tell them what to do. I ask them based on my background knowledge I have in aerospace and in cybersecurity, depending on which client I'm working with, how they want to proceed with whatever problem it is that they're having. They're all intelligent adults. They're engineers, scientists, leaders. They can come up with a solution. And it's not on you to come up with a solution with them. That's not what coaching is. So, that's more or less the way I handle it.
Yeah, nice.
Susan, I'm sorry, this is Dolan. How are you?
Hey, Dolan.
So I have a tangential question. I think it was a little bit earlier, David had alluded to this. And I'm just curious from your perspective, like, once, let's say you get the client, right? And oftentimes for me personally, I want to ensure that it's a good fit, not just as a coach, but for the coachee. And I'm curious to understand, some of I know oftentimes we kind of go through like a gut check, a gut feel, but in addition to that, are there questions that you ask yourself of, these are the kind of things that I need to kind of keep myself in check for, in terms of this is a good fit for me too, so I can put out my best as a coach.
We will certainly open this up to the group for comments. I had someone like this last year, and it seemed like she was going to be smack within my market and my things I could, work with her on. But I could never get her, no matter how hard we tried, I couldn't get her to solidify her goals. And after, I don't know, maybe 3 meetings or something, I'd be thinking about it in between times. And if she can't get more specific, I don't know how to help her. And so it wasn't so much questions to ask. It was that gut feel, paying attention to what was going on. And I said to her, I think I asked her, do you, well, I did one more time. What do you want to get from this process? And she still couldn't even answer it. And I said, I'm not sure that I can help you. I basically said, I don't know if you're at the point where I can't remember what I said, but I think it was something like, I'm not sure I can help you right now. It was obviously gentle, and she has stayed in touch with me, and I've checked in with her. But I just had to call it. And for me, it was because she wasn't clear why she was at coaching, and they just felt like rambling communications. And if I wanted to do was just sit there and take her money, I could have, but it didn't feel like it was going to be a good reflection on me ultimately if I couldn't help her to get to some sort of outcome and satisfaction. So what do the rest of you have to say about that?
Well, I've had clients like that before. And what I usually ask them when I come up against that kind of wall, okay, is I ask them if is there any way that you can provide me with a specific target that you're aiming for? I don't use the word goal. I use something different that they can understand. And usually it gets kind of quiet. It just goes dead silent. And sometimes you just have to let the silence work for you. And I had one client come back with a very interesting answer. He came back with, I don't know. And I said, okay, tell me what you don't know. And I threw him back, and he said, well, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I said, okay, well, tell me what you don't know. And he proceeded to just spew what he didn't know. And then I asked him, okay, of all the things that you just told me, which item are you most interested in going after? And he said, well, I think it's this one. I said, well, let's explore that for a while. And we did go after it for a while. And then he got, tangential again. And I'd reel him back in. And then there's times when you ask somebody that question and they come back with, I don't know. And you say, what don't you know? And they say, well, I don't know anything. I don't think this is working. I said, okay, it's not working.
Yeah.
They made the decision to leave. And I didn't have to tell them, I can't help you. It's turning it around to where the ball goes back in their court and they actually have to take some kind of action on it.
I love that. I'm going to remember that.
And it's hard to do, but when you're working with engineers, I mean, sometimes we call them gearheads, okay? Their gears only turn in one direction. And you need to speak to them with a different perspective than you would speak to, say, somebody that's in a non-technological field, because they're always thinking in an organized, structural way. They should be able to come up with a goal very easily, but you'd be surprised how many of them are really introverted and not easy to coach.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to share one thing that to Dolan's question, one thing that's really helped me is with this particular area is having a solid discovery session with my clients and really kind of, going through, of course, the differences between coaching, therapy, counseling, mentoring, being very clear on that. So helping them understand my approach to coaching and just giving them a little sprinkle of coaching, like a little mini coaching session to see how they're responding to the questions, how comfortable they are after speaking to them about what coaching is. And then, of course, just using your gut, your intuition, following that session. I feel like that really helps in determining whether they're ready for me, I'm ready for me, and whether we want to go forward.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Rashmi, you're such on the spot, because the example that I shared earlier with a corporate client that didn't go well, it was because they deviated from what my passion about coaching is all about, which is to integrate emotional intelligence into the coaching sessions. And this was a European corporation, and they said, oh, that emotional intelligence stuff is going to scare the of our executives. So that's when I started, oh my God, doubting, should I have said this? Should I, maybe I should not even mention emotional intelligence. And then talking to my mentor, he made me realize, no, Elena, that's what you're really good at, and that's really what you enjoy doing. So that's why this client was probably not the ideal client for me. So I think to answer Dawn's question and to add on to Rashmi is to have it very clear, like Rashmi just said, what is really your gift? Why are you coaching in the first place, right? What you're at service, and what is really that you're passionate about. Yes, flexibility from a coach standpoint is very important, but without deviating from what your essence and your gift is all about. So, Rashmi, thank you for cueing me on that one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elena. I mean, earlier this summer, I had someone come up to me and, to Rashmi's point, you go through that discovery and you ask the questions, you set up the framework. And what dawned on this potential prospect was the fact that they were looking more for consulting versus coaching. And as we all know, there's such a big difference, right? And sometimes I think we bleed the two together. And when I've had to do that, I actually say, okay, I'm taking off my coach hat. I'm putting on my consulting hat, right? So that way they know the difference, that what is truly coaching versus consulting.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So
I have a question.
let's take one more question, and then I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I don't know where that question came from, but go for it.
This is William.
Okay.
I know I'm a young coach, but has anybody tackled group coaching or couples coaching in your young careers, and what process did you use to get to that?
I haven't done group coaching. I've done some group facilitation. So anyone else care to comment on that?
I'm a team coach practitioner, and I just finished that with GTCI and David Clutterbuck 2 years ago. And I've coached about 3 or 4 teams, and I was teaching teams before. In team coaching, I usually have another coach work with me. And the reason for that is because, first of all, when you're working with 8 people in a team, they usually have a specific agenda that they want to follow. And the team coach covers all of the EI and psychological safety. And then I cover all the technical stuff. And it is a process that really does require some training. So I strongly recommend, if you're looking at group coaching or team coaching, that, I know ICF has a team coaching training now. I strongly recommend that, because I went through the practitioner program. It took a whole year to go through it. We had to have a test team that we worked with. And then we also had to deliver a case study based on the team coaching that we did in order to obtain our certification. And that training is very valuable, because you also have supervision included usually in the team coaching sessions. So you get feedback from an experienced coach that has that experience with team coaching. And truthfully, I think it's insane to go through any kind of team coaching training without supervision. So if you do pursue that line, I would ask the trainer, does this include supervision? There's usually a cost involved with that, but it's well worth it.
All right, thank you for that. We're about out of time. I just want to call attention, make sure you've seen these things in the chat. Someone said that The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin is a great guide to building your coaching business. Better Up and Bravely, for those of you who are looking for ways of building your business through subcontracting. Robin said that 90% of her business came through referrals, and yeah, everyone you know is a potential referral source, but it does take a while. And with that, Elena, I thank you all. I greatly appreciate the dialogue and the suggestions, and I always learn from these too. So thank you much. Thank you much for that. I'll turn it back to Elena.
We want to thank Susan for leading us through a great conversation today. Thank you, Susan, because you also jumped in last minute. So thank you. We appreciate it. Please join us next month. We are going to have another, hopefully, enriching session for you. If you have any suggestions on topics you want us to cover in the next sessions, feel free to email me. I put my email address in the chat. Remember, we've recorded this session. We're going to be posting it in the ICF Houston website. And again, thank you for everyone's participation and contribution to this call. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and rest of the month.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.